we are having our first of two October meetings for the Bristol Planning Commission. It is October 3rd. It is 7:03, and we call the meeting to order at 7:03. We need a minute taker, and I think prior to the recording, Chris said we volunteer to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Chris. And the next item is to review the agenda for any additional removals, adjustments of any items. I have nothing. Does anybody else have anything?
The question about that, so the next thing down on the agenda is quick take on sort of building headlines for what to discuss, so that's not the appropriate moment now, that's coming, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You were talking about item 2, small I.
I don't have it open, but yes, I think that's right.
Okay. Yeah, so this is just changes to the structure of the agenda.
Right.
I have
Melissa,
something. I don't know if this is the place to say it or not, but I want to apologize for missing. I guess I missed 2 meetings, and I was extremely ill, and I don't know if anybody knew that, but I was so ill I completely forgot to notify anybody that I wouldn't be at those meetings.
well, that's fine.
Yeah, and I were we supposed to all come there today? Because it's the first time I've seen almost everybody at the office.
No, we're still doing hybrid meetings, so.
Okay, okay. And
you're
the other
fine.
thing is, is that I can be here right now, but I'm gonna turn my camera off, and I just kind of have to sit here and listen. And if you have any questions of me, please ask, or I'll just I'll come back on. But this time of day is very difficult for me still.
Okay.
After the sun goes down, and I'm starting to feel really tired. And I'm not feeling my best today as I have the last 4 or 5 days.
Okay,
So,
when I try to call around the table, just keep everybody involved in the conversation, so.
okay,
If
yep.
you are such that you don't have anything to say, you can just pass. It's not
Okay,
obligatory to say anything.
okay. And I just was unable to get through the minutes because just reading and concentrating on reading is difficult right now. So,
Just, no, do what
Yeah.
you can, just hang in there.
okay. So I'm here, but I'll be listening for the most part, and then just ask if you need anything from me.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
With all that, I guess we will move on to item 2. So we're continuing our discussion on the bylaw modernization grant. We have gone through all the regulations. So the intent is for this meeting and next meeting to do a final review, if you will. And if you see anything that is a conflict or doesn't quite seem right as well, your thought processes were going through it, if it all comes together and looks different, now's the time to start those discussions so that we can tie it all together, so that we can progress through the requirements of the grant. This is gonna, go ahead.
Yeah, where is the revised document available?
It was sent out with the minutes or the agenda.
Well, you don't have it pulled up?
An email from,
Well, let me go back and see.
let's see.
There's that was sent.
It's this one.
Yes, I believe it is.
Okay.
So that was what, October,
Remember
No.
September
28th.
28th?
Mhm.
There we go. There's the agenda.
Oh, from the bottom.
Keeps going.
Their documents at the bottom.
These. I missed that totally.
Yeah, so like,
It was on the bottom of a bunch of them. I don't think I got to them all.
yeah, so
You know, one was, yeah. Okay.
So usually try to note any attachments by the item number too, if that, sometimes that helps maybe. Okay, so we are going to be reviewing what we've discussed and developed to date. I envision it to be more of a tactical discussion as opposed to going back and debating, if you will, some of the merits and more tangential concepts. With that, I've asked that everybody come with fairly crisp proposals as to what they see as conflicts or would like to change in the documents. There is, if we look at holding to our schedule of the 2 October meetings, we have roughly 3 hours of discussion to go through the whole document, which hopefully is enough time if we are succinct with everything we have. I'm hoping that we don't go back and, for instance, last meeting, there was a discussion at the end about ADUs, and hopefully we don't spend another 2 meetings on ADUs as we did earlier, as we grappled with those. If the topic becomes bogged down, I likely will very likely put a time limit to close that discussion and come to either consensus or vote on it, or figure it's a issue that can't be resolved. What do you call that? Be a hung issue. And then the final reminder is, you know, we have limitations set by the state, whether we like it or not. They're well defined in statute that we have to abide by, and some of the things that we've talked about going through this process have been outside of what we as a planning commission are able to deal with. So those conversations, while they're lively and interesting, really are beyond our control and where we're at as far as looking at revising these regs. So with that in mind, I did have in here, and I'm thinking, or it seems like we want to gauge where all the issues are and understand where the depth of conversation may come over the next 2 meetings. So I've asked, or I've got the first item underneath this is to just go around the table and comment, very high level subject box, if you will, on an email of what are the issues that you would like to discuss or bring forward. And in the interest of being timely, I've kind of bound this with 2 minutes a person, which is everybody takes a full 2 minutes, 18 minutes total. So I guess my point is it adds up. So with that preamble in mind, is there anybody that wants to go first? Or do we just go down the list?
Well, I mean, I'll be short. I'll go first if you like. What we discussed and the changes we made for the meetings I've been here, not last meeting, obviously. I'm comfortable with them. Even the ones I didn't always agree on. I guess going forward, I probably will have more input when we get sort of outside the village planning area.
Okay. And who would like to go next? Anybody, or should I just start calling people? Rob, if you got any thoughts?
Excuse me. Apparently can't get anything out. Think that the changes that have been proposed to the village planning area drastically change the village planning area. And I think that it's too dense right up to the wall of the village planning area, which then abuts RA1 and so on. There is no filter out and sort of center density with kind of a mix out to the more spread out zones that abut the village planning area. So I have concerns about how dense some of these outer areas are. And changing HDR to be at the outer limits of the village planning area.
Anything else?
No, I think the corrections would be to dial back density in those areas or to then step up density outside the village planning area, everything that abuts it, basically expanding the village planning area in terms of density of past.
Good. Flynn,
I know one thing I thought about is how, well, I'll just go to the word sanctions. What are the sanctions possible for people who just don't follow the rules? I mean, it's so hard, I know, for the zoning administrator to keep up with things. But where is there any power written into these regs?
Like enforcement.
Enforcement, I mean, like a certain number of dollars a day until you comply or something like this, because a lot of things just happen, it seems to me, and we sometimes let them go by. And, how do we enforce any of this anyway? Maybe there's an answer, I just don't know, I haven't been on this board that long this time.
We're going around.
Yeah.
for-
let's go around and come back. And that's it. Anything else for you?
I wish also, I don't have a plan to put forth for you, because I think I'm ignorant enough, but I know there are people that could talk about affordable housing and how to make a reasonable, affordable housing addition to these density increases, because I think would be great and makes sense to me.
Okay,
Okay,
okay, let's see, Melissa, you've been kind of out of the circle, I don't know if you've got any thoughts as far as.
Yeah, I don't know if, because I thought there were some things we were gonna go back to, and so I'm not sure exactly where we are. And I hate to say those 3 letters, but, for the ADUs, we were talking about light, regulations with regard to light, exterior lighting and that kind of thing. And I don't know about noise, but at least the lighting. So that's one thing that I was wondering about. I don't know if any other decisions were made on that. But also, yes, about the, just thinking about the how the density is on the, out from the village, and my concerns about, like, it has what we have already decided to do, is that gonna limit? Just don't, I know we all don't want Bristol to turn into a bedroom community. I think that we all don't want that, but how does that affect in the outside the center of the village,
Okay,
as far as how much that can be built up? Is somebody gonna come in and just want to build a bunch of cookie cutter houses and fit as many as they can and just spread out? And I really don't know if that is actually part of what we're working on right now, as far as how far out it goes. And I really do apologize, but I just right now can't remember a lot of what we've done, what we've done in as far as, density and increasing density in certain areas. And I really do apologize for that. But that was kind of overall my concern with, even just getting on the board, was to discuss that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I said, that and the perhaps as we get denser, we're going to need lighting regulations, possibly noise regulations, but I don't know if you've already done something with that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
John,
Yeah, so. I had just a few things, but I'm gonna echo some people, so a couple more things too. I have some questions for Adam. I don't know the best time for that. They could be dispensed with first or early in this conversation. Since maybe the answers are broadly applicable to the topics for tonight. Specifically, like how much it's about the densification part of this. So that's one issue. I'd love to have that chance. I do want to talk about section 404, which is the ADU section. I want to open up additional pathways for property owners to build ADUs. Or talk about that with everybody and see what you think about that. And give the zoning administrator more guidance in the process. Go beyond really the limitations that the state have most recently put into place. Or the rules the state has put into place. So that's the second one. Third one is I want to talk about the public outreach. Nobody really volunteered last time to consider public outreach, so I did a little bit, and I'd like to talk about that at the appropriate moment. I would like to address site plan review within the village planning area for duplex, multifamily, ADU, and applications for a density bonus, and address potential adverse impacts of the densification. And I don't know when to discuss that. Leave that to your discretion, but it does bear on sort of all the zones where we're taking that kind of action. So that will come up at different times. I noticed one thing. I didn't really look at the zoning regs with the comments and changes put into them, but I did quickly scan them. I noticed one thing about the hotel definition. I'd like to look at that with everybody, and just echoing Slim on affordable housing. I wonder if Adam can help us understand how other communities address affordable housing concerns specifically or generally in their regs. And so just some resource type questions.
okay,
Those are my several issues.
okay. Fred,
Okay. Yes, we left last meeting with the hotel thing up in the air, so I jotted that down. Do we require someone to be on premises and da. That was one thing. I also understand that there's some differences of thought as to what the total square footage of an accessory dwelling unit / accessory building is. Whether it's the footprint or whether it's the footprint in a second floor. And I think we should nail that down so that we have a total square footage scenario rather than have it be somewhat confusing.
okay,
And I'm not sure if zoning applications and the like fit within this, or can we change the rules for a zoning application and the like and not have to go through a hearing process and everything else? Because one of my thoughts is notification. Going from experience. Some kind of a written notification to adjacent property owners. And I don't know whether we should take time with that now, if we can just change that on our own, if there's a consensus about what to do for it. And I also, I guess throughout there, the last one I had was, especially for the high density residential village, whether I think it's number 322, or the old one, it was /322 in the regs concerning the plan that an applicant would present to the zoning administrator. An idea, there was no mention of exterior materials use. And I thought that might be 2 words to include in along with the other things that are mentioned that would be asked, and that was about it.
okay, thank you. Bill?
Thank you, Kevin. I expect, I remain a little concerned about pushing the density increase a little too hard in some areas. I think our density is going to be going up quite a little bit between the new state law and the other changes we've made. But I believe what Rob was saying about a too sharp of a transition might be on my mind too. Might be an issue we should take a closer look at. I think the transition should be easier and smoother. That's what I'm thinking of right now.
Okay, thank you.
Kevin,
And
Mr. Chair.
if I may. I would like to have considered dividing what we combine into the HDR as two separate districts. One would be centered around generally 1940 and older construction, which is really the heart of the village. And then the rest of the current HDR probably, and then what we've expanded into would have another one. And my thought, I mean, my thought was not to go back to adjusting the density there, but my thought was to allow as the new stuff is developed, not have it constrain the old existing construction or the other way around. I see on village business area, there are conditional uses for public works facilities, emergency services facility, or a police station, and I question why we need to allow those in the village business area. I would like to, I would like to have a 25% density bonus on the second unit of a two-family dwelling or duplex. I thought on the ADU, the last one that talked about materials, which is pretty ambiguous. I thought we had admitted that, but maybe not.
We did it.
It's still in there. Oh. But anyway, so I was kind of wondering about that. And then the business yard definition, as it was revised, pretty much cuts out heavy equipment, which sends all the diggers out of town, which I don't think is right. I would propose that we somehow define when the type of equipment that an excavating contractor typically has passes a threshold from what some lawn and gardening guys may have, and that sort of thing. That's what I got out of reading the revised record. So I think that the plan was just to start pretty much in the beginning and work our way through it, keeping in mind these things, and some of these things may or may not fall into a sequential. Were there some things, Adam, I guess backing up a little bit, were there some things that, I mean, John said he had some questions. Were there some things that in the list that we can discuss and have some sort of conclusion readily, or is there?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what about densification you're questioning or what you're wanting to discuss.
Happy to discuss it when the time is right. Like I said, I think the answers may inform the conversation that follows throughout a lot of the sections, because the densification stuff happens in a number of zones and that sort of thing. So it's germane to that.
It would be beneficial to me anyway, since I'm 6 months into the planning commission, to see briefly what was and what is, so I can visualize more the densification increases in the various districts that we made. And we've kind of gone through them one by one, but weeks, months go by.
I'm hoping we'll be able to do that as we move through each district. So I'll be able to point out, and basically the regs have fine changes on them. So you can basically track and see what districts got more dense and how much more dense they got.
Okay.
And I guess I'd say we also should start with the maps, and that will at least open an introduction to where basically in the current draft there's more densification occurring. So if I have, what I tried to do was to basically capture all of the changes that we'd at least come to some consensus on, with the exception of last meeting, over the course of the 9 months that we've been working on this. So if we didn't come to consensus, I didn't make a change. So everything in here should have been something that at least a majority of people at the meeting where the decision was made were in favor of at that time. It doesn't mean you don't get to change your mind. We all said we'd go back and review everything. And you can bring up these whatever you would like regarding these changes. But my intent was to capture the changes you came to consensus on. So I think it'd be best if we go to the maps. I can do a little bit of a summary from those, using those, and then we can I guess I'd like to dive into the districts and we can talk about densification, and if it helps us to step back from any given district during that conversation, we can. Okay, does that make sense to you, Kevin? Okay, so can everybody see the maps on the screen? Okay, and we looked at these last meeting as well. The map on my left is your current map. The map on the right is basically the changes that you all or we all have proposed over the course of this process. The two biggest changes on this map are basically just south of the village, where we added we converted the village residential district to the south of the village, and Chris is showing it to you right now, from village residential to high density residential. The other big change on the map is in the north of the village, where we did the same thing. So basically up by Plank Road and down by Lower Notch Road were the two places that we decided we would change the districts so that they allowed for more density within the village. So your village residential district, which is what was changed, allowed basically a density of, it was either 2 units per acre or 1 unit per acre. It went to high density residential up to 4 units per acre. While we're on the maps, we left the village residential the same along basically the mountain or Mountain Street, because you all were convinced that given the flooding that we've had there recently, that was not a good place for increasing density along that area. We made some relatively minor changes right around your village business district. We basically changed the village business district so that it would encompass all of the properties served by your water and, well, wastewater. The whole village is served by water, but only a certain portion are served by wastewater. The state regulation, S100, or the Home Act, basically had certain requirements for areas that were served by both water and sewer. So by basically putting all the sewered property within that district, we could make changes in just that district to satisfy the Home Act, and it did not necessarily impact the rest of the village planning area. So some of your rock district, the district in gold, at the east side of the village basically changed either to a sewer district. So Chris is zooming in a little bit for us. So that's okay. So you can see some of the gold on the left-hand side. It's on the right-hand side of your village business district. It's on the left map. Those changed either to village business if they were served by sewer, or high density residential if they were more residential type properties. Those were largely the district or the mapping changes that we made. So the sewered area is going to be more dense. And the two changes in your high density residential district at the north and the south of the village are more dense.
And the village mixed is more dense as
The
well.
village mixed is more dense as well. You increase the dense, it's not impacted by the maps, but you're right. As we go through the districts, you will see that the village mixed also got more dense.
And just a quick question for Chris, is the Mountain Greens building on the sewer system?
I don't believe so.
So it is shown in the village business district here, I believe, if I'm reading the map right.
But it
So
doesn't,
I think that would be a mistake.
well, it doesn't have to be in the district, I don't believe.
No, it doesn't have to be. And when we talked about that particular parcel at that meeting, because it was more commercial than residential, and we didn't want it just staying in the ROC district and kind of sticking out like a sore tooth, we
Right.
decided it was better off in the village business district than the high density residential district.
Makes sense to me. Thank you.
May I ask, what is the most northern, or, to the east, north and east? Now, village, business on the sewer, there's some new red squares. I'm just wondering which properties those might be?
Oh, on Mountain Street there?
Yeah,
One of them is mine.
the trading post.
The little triangular the weirdest looking lot there
Yeah,
that's the trading post. And then,
Oh, okay,
and then the first blue lot to the north is the little house next to the trading post.
all right, okay.
So you can, and that lot is so small for that big building that it's hard to see.
All right, thank you.
That's
I'm
it.
a little confused there.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So, I guess what I'd like to do is, we had two density questions and they may be coming from other ends of the spectrum. What I'd like to do is we've talked about where they are by looking at the map. When we get into a specific, we can come back to the map, but I'd like to, as we go through the districts, I'd like to, Rob, you can say, hey, Adam, high density residential district, expanding to those areas is.
Yeah, so while we have it up here, I mean, I was just looking at it. And basically, everything, the majority of the planting area now is 4 units per acre. That being the village mixed and the HDR, so all the orange and white crosshatch and all the cyan sort of color. That's all 4 units per acre now. And up against that is the one RA1 on the outside of the village area.
In most places, you're right, there is some RA5
As well,
as well.
which means that you have a hard line of 4 units per acre and then 1 unit per acre with nothing in between and no kind of filter out and
Mhm.
diffusion of that density.
Understood. Chris, could you go to the next set of maps, just the whole town maps?
And while he does that, could I address one particular parcel that may concern you on the south side where you point out here that, the new, what is that zone? It's hard, like the RA5 is up against, the village playing area and whatever zones on the north side of that, and it's slightly tan on the map I'm looking at, and the RA5 is white, I guess. That piece, I think that piece, that sort of triangular piece that sort of bounded by the river there, is mostly floodplain, just as a practical matter. I don't think anybody would be building much of anything. on
It's
this.
not just that one, it's kind of the
No,
whole
but-
idea. of
Yeah, no, and I'm with you on the idea, totally. Just noticing that one parcel of RA5 on the south. But that may be neither here nor there, but
Yeah.
that may argue for like, I don't, anyway.
So I wanted to just kind of zoom out for a second. The yellow line, I guess I'll call it spotted yellow, and that is basically your village planning area. So remember, we were charged with looking at basically creating opportunities for housing within your village planning area or within that yellow district. So those were the districts that we focused on. Rob, you're right. You have, by increasing the HDR district and by increasing the density of the village mixed district and also the village business district, you largely now have created, I would say, a fairly large or more significant opportunity for more dense housing within the village planning area. And we did not do any work in the rest of Bristol.
Right.
So outside.
However, it goes against the whole narrative of the village planning area with the more dense in the center and less dense as you work out.
There's no longer kind of what I call a bullseye effect, if that's what you mean, yes.
And just a question, is that Rockendale tail, that's also the village planning, a little orange bounded?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, it
Thank
is. And I believe that's village mixed.
And RA something.
So isn't that kind of what we want
I
though?
will see.
To have the more dense population nearer to biking, walking range of the downtown and all these sorts of things, and then we can leave.
But it's a cliff now with density.
Yeah, but yeah,
That's
that's
the problem.
What's the problem there?
It's a cliff with density.
But you-
One side of the road is 1 lot per acre and the other side of the road is 4 lots per acre.
And why is
Nothing in
that,
between.
why is that a problem?
I just think that it's a clash of development.
I can understand what Rob says.
Do
And,
we have, sit down, I'm sorry. go
okay,
ahead, Fred.
oh, no, you've got a thought, go ahead.
No, go on.
I
Sorry.
I've mentioned a couple of times, I would love us to take the RA1 district and allow more density in it. And so instead of it being a bang, that we still have the village core focused with a little more residential, and to its boundaries, we've permitted a little higher density there too. Whether you do it per, 20,000 square foot per home, which is I think a half an acre, right? Something
Just
like
under,
that,
yeah.
or whether you do more 4 acre, 4 units per acre, or how you address it. There could be a discussion, but I'd be all for doing something like that. I don't think RA5 districts make any sense at all, quite frankly, but that may be beyond this discussion. I think they're totally wacky. I don't see a reason why we have them.
Can you help me understand why?
Why do we have them?
I'm just interested in
If there's no good explanation.
just
I
too much
don't
like
know.
land with one
I think
house.
to some degree, maybe it was agricultural based. I don't know clue. I don't know clue.
It was originally done to maintain the rural character of the town. That was the rationale, that we didn't want to see South Burlington like subdivisions. As you go from farmland right into the Butler Farms along 116, we want to make sure and that's what we're talking about here.
And I guess if we feel that way, that'd be a good way to prevent it, for sure. If we don't feel that way, and if we don't know that we don't feel that the same pressures might be here, it's something that potentially we could loosen up I've just never big a fan. You talk about affordability, a few people of you mentioned it. Well, this is one of the things you can do to make things more affordable, is if you reduce the amount of acreage someone can buy. Low cost lots and acreage close to where the services are is something that helps make affordable units more possible where we want it. And if you do it a little bit on the edges, I don't think it would hurt. It would also take some of the pressure off the cost for lots
So do
within
we-
the village.
So on
The
that
few
vein,
that
do
we
we
have.
need to include business in the HDR to make it relative, make the density relative to the services?
Was that?
Say that
Well,
again?
you do allow for some density, some businesses in your HDR district.
Not many.
Would I ask you this, would you be open to, and I don't have any preconceived notion, but it seems to me that increasing density sort of in a belt around the village planning area. Do you envision that, like, it could be a sort of zone, like X zone?
I didn't have anything
Subsection
in
A,
mind
sort of,
except
like-
for more of an actual transition between the two and not
Well, maybe
not just a wall.
but maybe, yes, and I'm sympathetic, especially to the vision of like the Butler Farms vision, definitely. You can see why that's not attractive, and so I'm with you on that. And I'm just wondering if we were to rope the village playing area in some new zone or whatever that incorporates a little more density or something like that. It seems like going out that way would be easier than cutting into the village planning area and changing the density there. You know, it just seems like
Yeah,
adding the
I think
layer
it's-
might be the way to go, rather than the
That's-
additive, not the reductive.
Yeah, it's just my thought, my personal thought that it's too far, the density is pushed too far to the edge of the village planning area. It does not have any step down to the edge of the village planning area.
Do we add a
So
buffer
we'll have to-
around?
What's that?
Add a buffer around that's a little more dense, but not as dense as
Inside
inside.
of it?
Yeah,
Yeah, so let's talk proposals or changes, opposed to concepts.
I can see that mapped kind of, you know what I mean, like.
So remember, my charge was to work within your village plan.
Yes, yes.
Which really
That's
should
what we're
focus.
Well, we can all reduce the.
That there.
So what have you found then? I mean, that's it.
So the north side of Plank Road was village residential, correct? And that was, what was the density on that again?
Half acre.
Half acre, so two units per acre.
Yeah.
And the village mix was also 2 units per acre. Previously,
Yes,
Yes.
And we made that before the same as I guess, but
So do you
Yeah.
think, from what you're thinking, Rob, would you think the Plank Road situation is the same as the southern one along the Lower Notch Road, or there's different aspects between how those lay?
I feel they are, because they're on the outside of the village planning area. That there should be within the village planning area. Lower density at the edges. Whether it be 2 again, still. Units per acre. Or if we're going to 4, I think that's. Too much. In my mind, at those edges.
Bill, you had also talked about some concern. On that same idea, do you have any continuing thoughts?
I do. I would lean towards the idea of a transition to a 2 per acre inside the edge of the village planning area. And then,
so in essence,
yes,
you're proposing we go back to what we had.
so are you saying we have no increase in density otherwise?
No, but in those particular areas,
okay,
the
fair
two
enough.
hedges that we're talking about, what you're proposing is, Chris,
That's,
if you could go maybe to the map, the first map. So where the maps are side by side.
Oh, down,
Excuse me,
third one.
third map. There we go. So if you see, whoops,
Sorry,
if you see here, basically at Plank Road and at the Lower Notch Road, you had, village residential districts, which were basically 2 units per acre. At one of the meetings, we decided, or I thought there was a consensus of you that decided that it was a good idea to increase the density of those units because you had not done a lot of increase, you didn't want to do a lot inside the HDR district. And you thought that these would be the places that would be better for multifamily homes. So remember, I think multifamily homes are conditional uses. Let me make sure I'm speaking truth. HDR. Yes, is a conditional use in the HDR. But we were thinking that
Two-family dwellings aren't conditional, it's permitted.
2-family dwellings are permitted uses, you're correct, but
Multifamily are.
multifamily are conditional.
More than 2.
3 or more,
Yeah.
basically.
That's in, I'm sorry.
High
That
density
is in
residential
your-
village.
That is in your HDR district. So you all made, as we went on, you were very protective of what I call the core village of Bristol. And didn't want to make any changes, but did recognize that there needed to be some place to develop multifamily housing. And I think that's what moved some of you to change the designation of the village residential in these 2 areas to oh, no.
No, because
No, that doesn't
they're
make sense, does
both,
it?
they're both currently conditional use for multi-family housing.
All right, I apologize. They're both conditional uses, but I do think you thought that that was a better place for some multifamily dwellings. And since you didn't necessarily think they may fit in the core of the village, you thought they might fit out more on the periphery of the village. That doesn't address your concern, Rob, necessarily, but I thought that was the logic behind the decision when the group made it several meetings ago.
So if we revert back to the original zoning allocation for those 2 areas, we still have increased density in the village residential or village mixed.
In the village mixed and in the village business. Yes. So, I mean, that was a significant change that you all, at least a consensus of you had made.
perhaps we could consider a compromise that would expand the height density, but not to the full limit of the village planning area.
You could, yes, so Chris, if you wanted to go up to the other map showing kind of the village. So yes, if that's what you chose to do, you could leave some of that potentially as village residential if you chose to. Perhaps north of Plank Road, if I may be so bold. And I'm just,
Some of that was already HDR, right?
Yeah,
Just the close for the North Street.
yeah,
That's what I thought. And part of the backstory on the village residential out there was also, we increased the number of uses in village residential in one iteration of this. And what the thought was that would allow a little denser growth, but also allow the services that you want to go with that kind of growth, which would be a store or offices or a medical clinic, things like that, that aren't allowed in the HDR currently. So that was our original thinking back in 2017, I think, when we made that change.
I'd be curious, Rob, in your feeling uneasy about this. In what fashion do you feel uneasy? How do you feel it's a negative impact on the people that live in Bristol today? Or the people that might choose to come to Bristol? That there's such a drop off from 4 units per acre to 1, which I would be happy to change, but why is that? Why do you feel that that's a negative impact for the community?
I didn't necessarily say it was a negative impact. I just thought it was poor planning of the outlook in the density and how it was a wall of density instead of a filter out of density. I think that you do potentially have some negative impacts in some of these areas. If it is 4 units per acre built out with traffic and other things, especially along Plank Road, places like that, where there's maybe not the best traffic flow, to add all those in. If you look at some of those larger lots, you go to 4 units per acre, you can put a lot of units out there, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that the area can handle it at this time.
Guess I'd ask you to call the question on this one if everybody's ready and see where people are. Then we'll go to maybe the other side of the density equation.
You define the question.
Well, I would define it as, I think Rob and Bill are proposing to change the density in along at Plank Road and Lower Notch Road, where you changed it from village residential to high density residential. I think they would propose to change it back
I mean,
to village residential.
just some quick input too on the Lower Notch Road. There's not a lot of development that can happen there no matter what. One developable flat is now a solar farm, or will be a solar farm very shortly. So where they make it HDR, VR, that southern piece is sort of a moot point, and the terrain, what's left of it's almost undevelopable.
So the question is, do we revert back village residential back to?
Is that a
Correct.
fair summary of what you're thinking,
I
Rob?
think at this point, that's probably as succinct as we can get on this for me.
So let's do a straw poll. Everybody's in favor of doing that, thumbs up. And people are not in favor of it. It's 3-3.
Melissa, I don't believe voted.
You're muted.
You're still on mute, Melissa.
Sorry, I have trouble finding the buttons. A lot of this is kind of running together for me with everybody talking, and I apologize for that. I thought I thought I was better mentally than I am, apparently. So you were saying you wanted like a some kind of gradual thing from the high density to the like 4 per acre to 2 per acre. Is there any way to do that? To gradually do that, or is it within that set zone? So it has to be either the way we changed it to, or the way it was originally.
So the way it was originally is that stepped approach.
Okay,
We took and changed it to 4 acres to create the cliff that Rob is talking about.
okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think
So-
so.
So are
I
you
think
in
so.
favor? Are you in favor of
I
that? No.
I think of possibly of going back to the way it was, because 4 per acre out there, when you start to think about it, it does seem like it could be quite a bit. And and, you know, like I was talking about earlier, just somebody coming in with a property and just building, you know, like I
Okay,
said, look more like suburbs.
yeah, okay. So it's 4-3.
Well, that's just a straw poll, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Not a
that's-
motion.
It's, hung.
Right.
Well, it's not hung, it's not a motion, it's just
No.
a straw poll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I think that the village planning area was created at a time when people were really tuned in, as at least as tuned in as they ever have been on planning and zoning issues in Bristol. And the plan and the zoning regulations that put the village planning area in place were approved by something like 2/3 of the voters against 1/3. And it was the context of that conversation that led to that public vote happened over a couple of years, and people were overwhelmingly in favor of seeing the village planning area be the place where the village expands, the current village fabric expands out to its edges. So I think we ought to be true to that, intention. That's why these lines appear as they do, at least as far as the village planning area line. And so, you know, insofar as we might step down, I like the concept of stepping down, but I would do it outside the village planning area.
Well, you were talking about the village planning area, but in the village planning area and through that process, it describes that step down within the village planning area.
So,
That's fine, but I just,
so let's stop, let's not get too hung up on the debate. We need to move through some of these issues. We have a slight majority of people that indicated if we put it to a motion, we could do that. I'd be surprised if the outcome was different. But, there is a concern that it's what we are proposing to densify is too radical for this revision. So do we need to make a formal motion? So in here,
Would it help if north of Plank Road was kept at 2 and the other part of it was denser, allowed to be denser? Does everybody take that?
I would like to see it be the density that we discussed and voted on earlier, not that we can't change our mind, but just because there isn't a lot of places where we can get that density that we seek inside the village planning area. That area north of Plank Road is one of the best places for it to go, and I think we could achieve further to the north, we could achieve the step down outside the village planning area.
That'd be the other way. Make a little band around or in certain places, new, maybe, would that be a new dome? Of
I
some
leave
sort?
that to the group.
So right now, though, we're just dealing with the village planning area is the issue, is
Well-
the whole issue of what
No, we
we're
got-
looking at right now.
Well, if you're gonna, I mean, but Slim's question is still a
If you
good
come
one.
to a compromise quickly, I can support that, but you guys have me on the clock for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, so we can put that, we can table this for a little while and come back.
Sure.
It looks like we're pretty close. Seems like we're close enough to me, but we have our expert here on the clock.
I'd rather see you have a formal motion, have a vote, see if a majority of the planning commission votes one way or the other and try and move on, if that's okay with you. I don't get to choose, but,
yeah, if we put it off, we're just putting it off.
Okay,
So,
make a motion to revise the north side of Plank Road back to was it village residential, at 2 units per acre?
the north side of Plank Road. Okay, and when you say the north side of Plank Road, do you mean just the area that changed, or do you wanna go
Yes,
just the area that was changed?
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
then south side would be HDR.
that where the cursor is on the left, that large parcel there. And I think that should be village residential too. As it goes out.
So that.
Plank Road, yeah, that block,
Both sides, then.
just there.
And then the one to the south, you would leave as it is.
The one that's already adjoining, that
No,
area
the-
that's
the
already
other
adjoining
block.
the HDR.
The other
Not true.
block,
Yes, leave that.
As,
Oh, Notch Road,
yes,
that one. I think that's severely limited as it is. That one I don't,
Is that farm taking up the entirety of that or half of it? I thought we said last time.
It's gonna be hard to develop anything around it. I mean, the solar company owns that entire parcel.
Yeah. They might, well, okay, but there's no, if they don't use the whole thing for solar, they may want to develop it some other way. Just so we could still, think about that.
okay, so Rob, what's your motion that you're asking people to vote on, please?
to leave. The previous areas. At the end of the village planning area on Plank Road and the north side of Plank Road. As village residential.
okay, is there any, so is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
I
Not that we haven't had any.
I think that's an excellent place personally for added density, and I'll tell you, I'm gonna vote no, but, I mean, everybody else feels, I mean, where are we adding we don't wanna cram it into the village anymore exactly, and that's a good place, but anyway.
So, yeah. Anything else?
I think we have, like I said before, this is the opportunity to, follow the plan put forth by the public in a public vote to have,
So we have increased the
Excuse me.
density in the village mix though.
yes, so to keep true to the original, idea of the village planning area, that it would be the place to expand the fabric of the village. I'd like to go out to the limits, and insofar as we step down, we do it outside, so I'm gonna vote no.
So, okay, so now we're just disseminating votes as opposed to discussing it. So we'll call the question. So everybody that's in favor of reverting the blue area on both sides of the Plank Road back to its existing designation as village residential, say aye, raise your hand.
I,
To
Melissa and Bill,
Got me.
did you
Yes.
hear the vote?
Yeah, I just put my hand down real fast. It's, aye.
those opposed? 4-3.
So you've got 9 members as a majority,
Yeah.
you've got
Your vote, Kevin?
basically.
He doesn't want me to say.
Now I have to say something?
No, you can just vote.
vote. Actually, I mean,
No, I mean, they have to vote.
no, because you have.
It has to
You
be
don't have to
5-4.
vote.
It has to
If
be
you don't
5-4.
have to-
It's
Five,
a,
four vote.
Against,
Right.
Right,
So
By-
1, 2, 3, 4, 4, so.
no,
You have to have
if
it.
you're not voting for it, you're basically voting against it, is what Chris is saying.
currently
It's not-
4 votes for, 3 against.
I only
What?
typically vote if there's a tie.
So the chair may vote in the case of a tie, or where the vote will result in a change in the vote by creating a tie, in which this case upholds the decision.
But they don't deal with ties.
So the problem is, you've got a 9-person planning commission, you've got a 4-3 vote.
Who's not here? Anna, Anna and Kevin haven't voted.
If you have a preference, Kevin, I personally would like to know it, so that if there's 5 or if there's only 3,
So
it makes a
I will
difference.
vote with the majority, if that makes difference.
So there's no process for waiting for Anna's vote or somehow getting it?
Not here.
Yeah, I never
Is it
realized.
because of the impact of additional density that is your part of your concern, like?
So the question's settled.
He doesn't like the cliff, he doesn't like the cliff idea, where
No.
it goes from 1 to 2.
No, and I'm sympathetic,
Yeah.
but I'm just wondering if is it a matter of impact?
He
It's over.
doesn't have a reason. He just
You
doesn't
don't
like it.
have to have a reason.
Okay,
Now, so
That,
with that action,
yes?
how much have we increased the opportunities for housing in the village, big area?
you have still made pretty
Yes,
significant
yes.
density increases in the village mixed district, which is the orange hatch.
Village mixed, there it is. So we have 2 units per acre.
No,
Used to be, now it's 4.
On your revised thing, it's.
assuming you
It
stick with the
crosses-
revised
Lovely
four.
way
I am.
you,
Well, right, assuming, well, we're gonna vote, you're gonna have the opportunity to support that or not too. So yes, assuming you stay with that change.
Because what did we just do for the other village district that we put this back into?
That still stays at 2. The
That
village
stays at 2.
residential district stays at 2.
So if we do the village mixed at 2, the way it is, we will have done nothing,
You.
basically.
You will have significantly reduced the density, or you will not have increased the density in the village. As it is, the revised regs
The 4.
increase
Village
the
mix.
No,
the
it's
village
crossed out.
mix to.
The 2 is crossed.
4 and 2.
I think the 2 is supposed to be
I-
crossed out.
Maybe I just can't.
Yeah,
see.
the
Yeah.
2 is supposed to be, if you zoom in, the line on the 4 makes it look like.
Well, that would be,
Yeah.
that would be better from my perspective, because I thought that's what the point of all this was. So
It's
here,
gonna make it big enough, you can see it.
they were both crossed out.
No, the 4 just has a line under it.
It's the font. It's the.
I can't read it.
I said, you gotta make it bigger, I can't read it either.
I am gonna, I think I'm gonna move us on, otherwise we will,
Keep going.
miss our window, so,
I-
Melissa?
I am really sorry about this, and believe me, this is not a comment on anyone here, but I'm starting to get a headache and feel nauseous. So I think I'm gonna have to leave.
Okay,
I'm just not feeling well. You still have a quorum, right?
yes,
Without me, okay, I do apologize, and I don't know that I'm adding much to this meeting anyway, but. Yeah,
No.
I'm just kind of at the end.
okay.
Thanks,
well,
All right,
Thanks, Melissa.
I'm sorry,
Feel better,
Feel
Melissa.
better.
thank you.
Okay, before I leave the maps, John, you had some comments on density. I
I
guess.
have them prepared, if you're ready for them. It's a few, they're related, you'll see. In your opinion, as a planning professional,
Mhm.
does densification, reducing setbacks and increasing housing density with ADUs and multifamilies like we've been discussing, does that have any potential for adverse impact on neighborhoods where it happens?
Sure, it has potential for it. It's possible. But it's also, when we first started this, basically what we looked at were the demographics in Bristol. And the demographics in Bristol had been changing basically to a lot more homes that were made up of 1 or 2 individuals, not what you'd consider your nuclear family. And therefore the demand for housing is changing to support, or more people are interested in smaller units.
Sure.
Which can be done with ADUs or multifamilies or duplexes or things of that nature. So I
So
think
yes,
the changes that you're proposing will support more of the current needs of the population of Bristol in the area.
I agree, but that's not my question. My question is, in your opinion, as a planning professional, does densification have any potential adverse impact on neighbors?
Sure, potentially.
So there, yes,
Well, there's a
has potential adverse.
So
impact.
there's a possibility of that.
All right, so here's my follow-up question then, is that, are there things that other communities, do in their zoning to address these potential adverse impacts?
So I would tell you there's a big difference between ADUs and single family dwellings and duplexes than there are multifamily dwellings, and you've done that in your regulations. So multifamily dwellings you can make subject to site plan or conditional use. You have done that in a lot, actually, every multifamily dwelling is subject to site plan Some of them are subject to conditional use. In your site plan regulations and your conditional use regulations, you look at things like lighting and noise and parking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
But we don't do that because we don't regulate single family homes that way. And the Home Act prevents us therefore from having a review like that. Is that correct?
You can't do it.
Right.
Basically, yes.
Right. So are there things that other communities do in their zoning to address these potential adverse impacts that we can do?
Not that I know of. I mean, we talked a little bit about making all of the village planning district an overlay district. At the time, most of the planning commission was not amenable to that. You could talk to your select board about specific lighting or noise ordinances outside of zoning. That's outside this group's purview. But as far as zoning, the statute is pretty clear that you can't use site plan as a tool to regulate ADUs or
Unless-
dwellings.
Unless we do it for single family homes.
No, if you look at 24 VSA 4416, which is site plan review, it basically says you can do it for everything but 80 single family homes and ADUs. You can't do it for them.
It does it say that, or does it say you can't regulate? them?
let's-
I'm trying to clarify this
So
point of
we've
information.
talked about this at length, John.
Well,
And
I'm
it's
trying to
coming
get
up
clarity.
again. And the regulations, Adam's done it, has reviewed them with us before. And we're going down the same path again, that with single family housing and now duplexes and ADUs, there's no mechanism in zoning enablement to allow us to do what you want.
Unless, it says that you can't regulate them more than you regulate, you can't review them more.
Different statute.
So statute 4416 states, and this is the site plan review statute. As a prerequisite to any approval of any use other than 1 and 2 family dwellings, the approval of site plans by the appropriate municipal panel may be required.
So we may.
No,
No,
you can't do it for 1 or 2 family homes. You
One
cannot do
is
site
where
plan review at
exempted
all.
from.
That's what he just said.
And that's not part of the Home Act?
No,
Doesn't the Home Act say that you can't review them? This is my confusion. I'm trying to get clear. The Home Act, I thought, said that you can't review those multifamilies and ADUs more than you review single family home applications. Is that correct? Correct.
there are portions of the Home Act that do say that, well,
So by default, if you can't regulate the ADUs more than single family homes, you couldn't put site plan review on ADUs because you can't do it on single family homes.
thank you, Rob. That's true.
So
Maybe you two guys can talk
No,
on the outside of this meeting.
but it's our nickel.
Interrupt the
He's
thing.
on our nickel.
Or doesn't he get one price for the whole job? Or do you want an hourly basis?
I'm already over it.
So just so I understand, so there's nothing that Bristol as a community can do to regulate duplexes, multifamilies and ADUs?
No, you can regulate
Duplexes, single
multifamilies,
family.
single families, ADUs, and duplexes. You can regulate, right?
Review is what I
You
really
can,
mean
you
to
can
say.
review, but they're not subject to site plan review. So all the criteria that you have as site plan review, do not apply to
But they're permitted uses, right?
their permitted uses
So
without site
on-
plan review.
In Bristol's regs now, as published on page 108, a permitted use is a use specifically allowed in the district, excluding illegal uses and non-conforming uses. Permitted uses may or may not be subject to site plan review. And it says, see site plan review. And I see that on page 112. It says site plan review constitutes a review by the Development Review Board of a specific proposal that constitutes permitted use within the district in which it is proposed. Site plan review is limited in scope to focus solely on proposed development characteristics within the site. The Development Review Board may impose conditions on how the site is developed pursuant to the criteria contained in section 356. The development review board shall conduct a site plan review pursuant to the procedure outlined in section 290
So if you also.
to 96. So is that not in force here in Bristol?
No, that's true with the exception of, so there are two types of permitted uses in Bristol and everywhere else in the state of Vermont. There are single family dwellings, ADUs and duplexes, which where they're permitted, basically are not subject to site plan review. And then there's other permitted uses. So let's say a bank in downtown. It's not a conditional use, it's a permitted use, but it's subject to site plan review.
Right, but they're not subject to site plan review in Bristol because we don't regulate single family homes?
No, you
No.
regulate single family homes. They're either permitted or they're not, but you cannot attach a site plan to them because the state statute doesn't let you.
If someone builds a garage and a parking unit upstairs, it's just common, how does that fit in?
It's basically an accessory use. The garage would be an accessory use and the ADU would be an ADU. The apartment upstairs would be an
So
ADU.
that building would fall under the ADU thing, or would it fall under, could be both regular or something, it would be both?
Well, accessory uses are generally permitted uses as well, without site plan review. You don't conduct a site plan review on a garage generally.
Unless it has an ADU on top of it, but we don't do that.
So,
now.
so let me also explain the
We-
difference between, if
No,
I.
time out.
Excuse me.
We are going back, and I cautioned before, we're going back to the circular questions that we've spent meetings on before. And Adam has said it over and over and over, and if we're not accepting that, then we need to, I don't know, we need to just move on.
Well, I'm just trying to get clear and
No.
the answers aren't clear.
It is, it
I
has
would
been
say it's
clear,
been
John,
perfect.
whether you're
Yeah.
accepting or not, it's
Yeah.
been pretty
I am
clear.
accepting, but I'm trying to understand. So Bristol can do, there's nothing Bristol can do to, if somebody wants to put 4 units on a single family home lot, which we say allow, and so it all matches. There's nothing we can do to regulate that. There's no review for them, or is
No,
there a
there-
review for
there-
multifamilies?
So
Yes.
a permitted use can be conducted by the zoning administrator, right? And it will be, okay, is it permitted within this district? Do they meet the setbacks? It's basically a dimensional review. A permitted use with a site plan, the zoning administrator would look at the dimensional restrictions in the use and say, yep, it's permitted, it meets the zone, and then he would send it on to the DRB. The DRB would conduct a site plan review on basically parking and lighting and all the other things. If it's a conditional use, the zoning administrator cannot basically issue a permit. It goes directly to the DRB and first they decide, is it appropriate here? And if they determine it appropriate here, then they applied site plan criteria. And the parking needs to do this, and the lighting needs to do this, and this needs to do this. But state statute's super clear, site plan review does not apply to single family dwellings and duplexes. And because of the Home Act, you can't treat ADUs different than single families. It therefore does not apply to them.
So we can't have any more review of those things in Bristol. If we wanted it.
You can have dimensional reviews, basically, they still need a permit. Can you put site plan criteria on those things? The only way you could do it would be to make either a design review district out of the whatever area you wanted, and you'd be regulating everything. It's like you have a design review district in your
Downtown.
in your village business district. Or you could ask the select board to pass ordinances on things that you wanted to regulate, let's say noise and lighting. But those are outside of the view of the planning commission, they're outside of the view of zoning.
That's good.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any other questions?
Those are the questions I came with in
Okay.
tagging that, flagging that topic to be considered. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm gonna move to the regulations and I'm gonna work through them as best I can, start on page 14, Chris. That's your,
Use table.
use table. Not very many changes here. The one I want to make sure of is in the village mixed district. You allowed multifamily dwellings to go forward with a site plan review. As opposed to a conditional use review. So you're not asking, is it appropriate here? You're assuming that it's appropriate here, but you are putting the site planning constraints on the multifamily dwellings, i.e. what's the lighting look like? What's the parking look like? What's the access look like? That type of thing.
And that's in this is in the village mixed.
Village mixed, correct. They are conditional uses. Well, it's a site plan in village business and it's conditional uses everywhere else.
Gotcha. That includes all the districts that we've densified.
Yes, so it's site plan currently in village business. But we're proposing to change it to site plan in village mixed. ROC does not have, does not allow multifamily dwellings.
And by site plan review, you mean a review by the DRB?
Correct. Using the site plan criteria that are in your regs.
Right.
The other two are, we haven't decided on them, but they're at the bottom. They're in guest facility. I put them there as placeholders, because they're with the recommendation that, Anna and I worked up for all of you to review in with the definition.
Is that
So-
in your lined up document that under hotel?
It's under in and guest facility.
Yeah,
But
it
it's, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to village business district. You made a lot of changes to village business district. Let's see, that's page 16, Chris. Okay. Made some changes to reference that basically, it now encompasses all lots served by the Bristol wastewater system. Therefore, we made changes basically, so that district encompasses all of the Home Act. The density changes that we made below will also meet the Home Act. So you'll see just a couple changes to the language, supported Bristol's densest housing options. We moved it from 6 dwellings per unit to 8 dwellings per unit. We moved the residential lot size from 10,000 square feet to 5,000 square feet. Just above in the permitted uses, conditional uses, that's the same change as I showed you in the chart. You all have not necessarily agreed to that, but I put it in as a placeholder. Down below, at the bottom of the page, you'll see in the footnotes, affordable housing development is defined by 24 VSA 4302, includes mixed use development, may add an additional density bonus of up to 50% as required by 24 VSA 441213. This is one of the changes of the Home Act. So in addition to the density here, if they agree to do an affordable housing unit in this district, they get an additional 50% density.
And are density bonuses considered at a DRB review? Or are they just granted by the zoning administrator?
No, so anybody doing it'd be a multifamily dwelling or a multifamily project of a size where they could take advantage of the density bonus would have to go basically probably for a subdivision permit and for a multifamily.
Thank you.
A site plan review in front of the DRB.
Thank you.
A quick one, does the whole project have to be affordable? Or is it a certain caveat, 50% or above something?
So it's a certain caveat, and the caveat is provided in basically the statute 4303.
Okay,
And it
that's
says
good
inclusive.
enough. I think I know what that is, but.
Okay, the other thing that I want to bring you to, the footnote is actually fell to the next page, and I'll fix that. Because the building height, right now you allow 3-story buildings 50 feet in this district. So it's the only place in town where you don't limit it to 35 feet. again, this is a requirement of the Home Act. Affordable housing developments as defined by 24 VSA, including mixed-use development, which answers your question, Fred, may add an additional 1 story over and above the maximum height limitations provided by that the structure complies with the Vermont Fire and Building Safety Code. So, in essence, your regs give an extra, if a story is 10 feet, your regs give an extra story and a half above every other place. And the Home Act would give another story above that in this district.
So if we're sort of 3 stories is okay now, it could be 5.
Yes.
And is that sort of thing subject to any public review process?
I would tell you that basically may add an additional 1 story over and above the maximum height limits, provided the structure complies with the Vermont Fire and Building Safety Code. So I don't think your DRB is going to have a chance to look at it. They've got to show the DRB that they comply with the Vermont Fire and Building Safety Code, but the DRB is not going to be able to say to them, well, yeah, the state statute allows you to go to 50 feet or another, and actually it would be 60 feet.
Yeah, 60.
It would be 60 feet. So it would be, because you've already given them an extra story and a half in your regs.
Even though it says 3 stories and 50 feet.
One's residential, one's commercial, I believe that's different, yeah, right? I know what your min max,
Minimum is 3 stories, maximum is 50 feet.
that doesn't make any sense.
You wanted them to build to your existing,
That's right.
Not have a
This is
single
the
story in the middle of all the 3 or 4 stories.
yes, yes. So that's why the minimum
Gotcha.
is 3
That's what
stories,
it's throwing
but
me.
theoretically, they could get to 60 feet would be 6 stories.
So we could have a 6-story building built in our downtown without any DRB review?
No, you would have a DRB review, but one of the things they couldn't say is, well, our regs say 50 and we're gonna forget about the state statute. Even though it says 60, you know, or an additional 10, an additional story, we're not gonna allow you to do that. They can't do that.
So everything else that the DRB would be reviewing, they could still review. It's just the height requirement is gonna be per the state statute on that.
Right,
And Bristol's regs would require them to come to the DRB?
yes.
That's written into this draft?
It'd be a multifamily unit and therefore they would have to go for site plan review. Yes, and they would have to basically show the densities were as required in your regulations, setbacks and things. So yes, they'd have to go to the DRB.
We're talking village business, the business.
Village
district,
business,
So it wouldn't have to
site.
be residential, it could be
Commercial?
It
a
could be a
commercial,
building.
well, I mean, imagine that.
It could be.
Okay.
So the reason I brought that to your attention is you had already given an extra story and a half, you, the town of Bristol, above everywhere else. And then the state statute is saying, and now you need to give another story. I guess my question to you is 6 stories okay? Or, and actually the extra story, mixed use development, it could be part commercial and part residential. Or do you want to dial back your 50 feet to 35 feet and allow them to add another? I guess is my question.
What that would do is limit the non-qualifying development to be at 35 and not match with the rest of the skyline in the area then.
Well, you'd start the base lower and then they could add on if they were doing basically,
Only if they were doing qualifying
yes,
projects.
yes.
But we
Yes.
also have design review board, or the, what we call now, something else.
Downtown design review.
Downtown design review, which has no real teeth, but it does push things on to zoning, other boards.
So where's the height of the buildings on
Hey,
that
knock it
street
down.
now?
Dungy Block is about 36 or 37 feet tall. That's the tallest building on Main Street.
Hendy's might be taller, because Hendy's is
Hendy's-
down.
Hendy's probably is taller.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
they start
And
going-
Hendy's has got those Victorian ceilings. I bet they're
Is it-
14-foot ceilings, so
four-
times 3, you're looking at like 45-ish probably.
I don't know, but I
What's
think.
the, what's the top of the mill?
Top of the mill is probably 60 feet. The upper layers, the upper stories are just attic and could never be inhabited, but that's off of Main Street, but yeah, that's tall. I probably have the tallest enclosed room in downtown Bristol, but it's a porch.
Okay,
So maybe instead of going ratcheting back to 40, 35, maybe it's 40.
If that would allow for a non-conforming for that statute that allows that extra story, if that would allow for something to be put back in there that matches with everything else, then that would be okay.
they could go from 40, if you went to 40, they could go from 40 to 50. A story's about 10 feet.
I mean. Yeah. One thing that's special about Bristol that everybody I meet who comes to Bristol mentions is the Great Main Street and what it looks like. It's a big draw, big thing I love about it personally. You know, I'm not averse to some more height. 2 more stories on top of where we're at now seems like a lot to me, although I'd be open-minded. Again, if there's some way that we get the developer in and we can say, what is it gonna look like and how is it gonna impact the neighbors? Because this is the densest part of Bristol. And the impacts can be expected, right, to be the most possible.
And most of those uses down there are actually site plan and conditional use, which means they would be going through the review process. anyway,
Yes, that's
so.
why I've been through it myself 6 times.
Yeah.
And I would just wanna make sure that there's some loophole that somebody putting 2 more stories on top of the tallest building could drive through without any kind of permit review.
So
No,
does anybody
There.
want to entertain a motion to
I'll
just?
make a motion, we make the maximum height 40 feet.
Versus the 50 that it is currently, which would allow the maximum height to be 50 feet with the bonus thing, if that works out.
With the state bonus.
With the state.
I'll second that.
1 seconds, any discussion, any more discussion? Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hand.
How about the people in the-
I don't see it.
I just saw his hand poke up. There it is.
That's unanimous.
okay.
I love it, Bill.
Any-
You're the disappearing man up there.
Any other thoughts, questions regarding village business?
We gotta decide on the hotel thing. Right?
That's definition later on,
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna do it as a definition later on.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay, ROC, you did not make any changes. So we're gonna move on to village mixed. You did make, the biggest change that you made here was that you basically doubled the density. So you went from 2 units an acre to 4 units an acre. And basically went from residential lot size, I think that's 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, it was 15 and.
It was 15, that's why I was thinking, why was it 5? And now I see it was 15, you went down to 10. That was actually one of the requests of the firehouse development was, you know, they had to get some extra land and it was largely because of the density in the village mix, so. It's supporting some of your existing density now. I'll point out, we're gonna go to business yard later, but I do have it highlighted to just make sure we're gonna talk about it later in the definitions.
Thank you.
Okay, other change, lot coverage, basically increases, since we have the density, we increased the lot coverage in the village mixed district to 50% and kept it that way for both commercial, and we reduced rear yard and side yard setbacks so that they are similar to HDR. Okay, any questions on the village mixed district? Okay, we did not.
Oh, can we back up to page 16? Sorry, I wasn't keeping track of it.
Yes,
It's kind of a tangent, it's not to do with, underneath conditional use review, we have emergency services, police station, public works facilities. I don't understand why those are there.
So it used to be, at one point in time, the police station was right here. And if they ever needed to move back into this building, it wouldn't be allowed.
Okay, so that makes sense for that one. Public Works, dump trucks, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And emergency services would be the rescue squad, right?
Or, yeah, yeah. Or it could be a fire, it could be a one bay fire station, if you need better fire coverage in your downtown.
There's,
I mean, they go through conditional use, and one of the primary drivers of a conditional use review, is it in character with its setting, so I mean.
I personally don't see a downside with that being in conditional use for the area. That's my thoughts on it.
so the definition of a public works. Why is that? Public works facility, a publicly operated facility for the storage and maintenance of vehicles, equipment and materials used for highway and similar infrastructure maintenance and construction. The collection, distribution, treatment, and or storage of potable water, wastewater, or stormwater. Or for the collection, processing, and short-term storage of solid waste, recyclables, and similar refuse.
So if there needs to be a water pump station or something
That's
like
all
that,
down over the hill.
it is now,
It's not
but you would
even just-
preclude it from being able, if there's addition needed, or if Bristol actually ever does build out a wastewater system for the entire village, you would preclude what you would potentially need as pump stations, community pump stations or village run pump stations from being in there, correct?
Why would
I'm
it's not?
not sure it would, Rob. I kind of think that you might preclude the main facility, but you wouldn't include a pump station.
Then, and how do you define that? Again, I'm thinking for my job,
Well, there's pump stations in Virginia all over the place.
Yeah, they're kind of
It's
neat.
just
It's part of the
structure.
infrastructure.
Yeah, but that, when you read through that,
It strikes me odd.
or for the collection, processing, and short-term storage of solid waste. So that's where I got a little collection, distribution, treatment, all of that as it ran through the potable water, wastewater, and everything else, because it included distribution and collection of that. For those facilities, that's where I don't know if there would be an adverse impact later on.
Yeah, I just don't see that.
Did you have a concern about it being in
The
conditional use?
highway maintenance garage on Main Street is what my concern is.
Do you think that that would go through conditional use and be approved?
It's
Is that your
conditional.
concern? Okay. I'm just,
So this conditional use,
The question is it appropriate here?
right,
why would you have it listed as a conditional use if it wasn't appropriate?
do we need to change the definition of public works facility?
Ken, I think when we talked about if it was like a one-off garage, like a remote garage to store the village snowplow, the
The
sidewalk plow.
sidewalk plow?
Downtown, instead of having it, especially if they move the facility down on 116 or something, where they need to move the facility potentially.
Yeah, well, where's the town? Why would that be appropriate for downtown Bristol?
Right, it wouldn't. I mean, one of the things that I always put emphasis on was the objectives and guidelines before each of the districts. And if you read your objectives and guidelines in front of the commercial village business is what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
It wouldn't make any sense that the town put a 3-bay garage within the district and store their snowplows there and et cetera, because it goes against everything that the objectives and guidelines say. So when you go to the review group, unless they're all stoned that night, you would think that they would probably say, this isn't appropriate at all. I would think. You would think,
But you can,
you know, and if you look, I mean, that, to me, those are important words. When you read these things, you know. And you look at the exceptions and what's permitted and the like, high density residential. This district is largely developed with single family homes, and it is the intent of the regulation to protect the existing character and maintain the district's traditional settlement patterns and quality of life. And there's some other things it talks about a little bit earlier, but those things I would think would have meaning if it goes before a board. It would probably have meaning to Chris when he looked at something. You can only, the intent, objectives and guidelines doesn't mean anything?
Chris wouldn't do that, that would be the DRB.
Yeah.
The DRB would have to look at that.
Only for DRB scenarios.
Only if something
Conditional
comes to the
use.
DRB.
But it's as a conditional use, it has to go to the DRB.
And you don't get involved in DRB stuff.
I refer.
He runs the whole show, are you kidding me?
We're enough facts, no, what happens is if it falls into conditional use,
You know,
site plan review,
automatically goes.
it automatically gets punted, it's a referral to the DRB.
Okay.
So is there any traction on that? There isn't, we should move on.
Does anybody else feel it not appropriate, should be removed?
But the only thing is saying they couldn't even have a little
If
garage
it's,
somewhere for the
If-
local sidewalk plow.
Well, if we leave it in.
if it's removed.
If it's
it would not
removed.
be.
Correct.
I'm hoping people can be flexible enough to do the right thing there. Never know.
I'm comfortable with it as it stands.
Move on.
Great. So we've been through the village mixed district, did not make changes in recreation, C1. Did not make changes in village residential. We did just move a portion of village residential back to being village residential. That's a 2-acre density. That's the step down that you were looking for. High density residential district. I made a couple small changes, basically in the objectives and guidelines, just north and south and what should have been west to begin with. From the downtown business district.
Instead of including all three directions, can it just be extending outward from, it's just
I'm with you.
it's a hard sentence for me to read.
Sure.
It reminds me of that quote from some military general who said, the enemy is to the north and to the south and to the west and maybe to the east. You know, it's like, well, where aren't they?
Sure, outward's probably better. Otherwise, you did not change anything in your high density residential district. You expanded where it was. You've dialed that back a little bit tonight, but you still expanded it. But otherwise, it's basically unchanged. And again, you can see, as at least as a placeholder there, I have the in-guest facility moving to a conditional use review there as well. And we'll talk about that at the definitions.
Okay, now, Kevin, you had something you brought up when we went around with the 2-minute thing about
Yes,
something in the one part of the high density
Oh,
residential.
yeah, HDR, yeah. That's
Just for
true.
there now.
Yeah, cause I was suggesting that we allow a density bonus for duplexes. And I had suggested 25%, that roughly takes a half-acre requirement and reduce it to about 0.4 acres, 0.39, 0.49 acres. And I have no proof of this, but it seems like with a 0.4 acre lot, you can still have 6 bedrooms, 2 drives, all that kind of stuff in this appropriate septic. And there's my feeling is there are significant number of non-complying duplexes in the village. And I think there are a lot of houses in the village that could benefit from that option and still not impact services if they were on a 0.4, 0.39, 0.4 lot versus a 0.5 acre lot.
You lost me,
So
given what we had.
let me try and help. Right now, in all your districts, actually, you regulate dwelling units per acre. You don't necessarily care whether it's a single family unit, 2 units, right? 2 units needs
Right.
twice as much acreage as 1 unit. And then multifamily would use 3, 4, 5, whatever much acreage. So you're
When you
regulating
say
on
2 minutes,
units.
2 units, you mean a duplex?
A duplex,
Okay.
yes, yes. What Kevin is proposing is that there's a density bonus specifically for duplexes. So basically for duplexes, it would be 1.25 units per acre. Or excuse me, no, it would be for duplexes, 4 units per acre. If there's a 25, you get an extra, it'd be basically 5 units per acre. At 25%, right? Did I do that right?
What's the I'm having trouble imagining the practical effect of that, like, how would we see that work in?
So rather
on the
than
street.
needing an acre, or no, excuse me, rather than needing a half acre to have a duplex with a 25% density bonus, you would use about 0.4 acres for a duplex.
0.375, right? If it's 3/4 of that with the 25, is that how the 25% bonus would work? Is that then you only need 3/4 of the amount of land?
I had worded it so you'd have a 25% reduction of the second. But you
So
can,
so only the second unit acreage needed would be reduced by 25%, not the total.
To build a duplex.
build a duplex or convert to a duplex.
Still not sure I understand.
So
Well, it says 1 unit per 10,000 square feet, which is the half an acre, and you're saying
That's a
you'd like
quarter
to
acre.
make it that, what?
That's a 1/4 acre?
it's under a quarter
It's
acre.
just under.
So you'd like to move it down a little bit to whatever it is, 9,000 square feet or something.
It's a density bonus. So yes, in essence, that's what it does. The 25% allows, it's an additional 25%. It would allow a little bit more than 4 units per acre, but only for duplexes.
Is there a way
You
we
can't have more than a duplex on a village lot.
For
For a duplex, there's no accessory dwelling unit permitted.
No, but you could have, you do a 4-unit building if you wanted.
You could do a 4 unit, and that would be a conditional use.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you think this is good because it's better than having 2 houses on the same lot or
Well,
something?
what I'm thinking is, the village of Bristol has a lot of older, large houses that are underutilized. And right now, you need a half an acre lot to put in a duplex, which is not uncommon, but it's not that common. Most lots are 0.35 to 0.45. So by giving some relief, however you want to do the math to come up with something. But my concept is you get down to about a 0.4 lot, 0.4 acre lot. That would allow
With your bonus, that would support a duplex.
would support a duplex.
To be 0.4375 acres with the 25% bonus on the second unit.
So I'm getting, my question here is, okay, I've got a bigger house, now I can do an ADU and nobody can stop me. And what's the difference between an ADU and a duplex, if I'm gonna put it inside my house?
Size.
You could,
900 square feet would be far, or I guess for us, 900
Or a
square
third.
feet, or 1/3.
Right.
Okay, so you could have, a very large house could have a larger, or a pretty large house like we have. Yeah, okay.
Is there a way to do it to say you can put a duplex on a smaller lot, just straight up, so we don't have to do
That's what
math?
I was trying to do, the same thing. I'm
Like,
like,
formulas confuse me, that's where my confusion comes in this conversation, can we just do it straight up and say, you're doing a duplex, you could do it on this, as little as this much acreage, and that would be straight up.
So the
Clear.
answer is duplexes would count as one unit, basically. So you could get 4 duplexes, if you could get 4, well, you could make it whatever you want, straight up would be. Twice the density. So you could get 8 dwelling units or 4 duplexes on the same quarter acre.
Or like Kevin was going for 0.4 acres, it'd be 5 units per acre for duplexes. Right, you start
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
crazy.
So the answer is you can, if you want to. Provide a density bonus for duplexes. You can do it as 25, as Kevin suggested, you can do it as 50, you can do it as 100, you can. It would encourage duplexes. How much do you want to encourage them?
I'm open to duplexes as long as they get site plan review. And we know that the lights and the parking, that stuff takes into consideration the town's interest and the neighbor's interest, which are established in law.
Can't do that.
But you can't do that.
Can't
You
ever get
you
it.
can Regulate the parking,
Can't
but you
ever
can't get
get it.
anything else. You can't get any of the
Oh,
other.
I did
site plan
forget
criteria.
this. All right,
That's amazing to me.
it is kind of.
It's amazing.
So some of the larger homes, we've got one, and there's a few other folks. You can put an accessory dwelling. If, you know, in those large homes. Mother-in-law apartment, whatever it might be. But to try to go directly towards the duplex thing. How would that impact your house
A lot of
and
them,
your ability to have that secondary unit? If you wanted to make it 4 units, you can now, but you'd have to go through if it's enough land, I guess, right? You'd have to go through the review process. And so some of the bigger homes, if they don't have a lot of land, that would be a whole nother ballgame.
So currently, I believe if you wanted to convert from a single family to a duplex, you'd have to get a little wastewater permit, right?
absolutely.
Mhm.
And
Change of flows.
any change in residency, and
So that would kind of prove out your septic aspects.
I don't know whether parking is an issue, it probably wouldn't be.
You would need an additional parking space under your regs. So duplexes are permitted uses without site plan. Basically, so the question would be whether or not you could meet the dimensional requirements. Kevin's proposing an extra bonus so that it's easier to meet the dimensional requirements for duplexes.
I don't favor it if it means having to accept more unreviewed, density, in the village. I can't support that. More density, sure, it has impact, we know density has impact, but we're not gonna do anything about that impact, we're just gonna hope that builders got a good heart. Take his neighbor's considerations into mind. But we've thrown up our hands and said, there's nothing we can do, we don't have an interest.
So one of those lots behind Martin's hardware, what size is it, Chris?
they're about 0.4 acres.
Okay, well, let's say they're 0.3, just for argument's sake. Or one of them is, and someone wants to put a duplex there. The way our rules are today, they couldn't. Permitted use and everything, but they would need 0.4 in order to be able to do the duplex.
They
They
need
need
0.5.
0.5 the way it is now, 0.4 the way Kevin's talking about.
I'd like the idea of that. I don't like the idea of a bonus, though.
I like straight
Yes.
numbers.
I like the idea of a village lot, and there's a lot of them in my neck of the woods that are 0.3, 0.25 in size. I mean, there's a ton of them in the village, and there are some that are bigger.
And if one of these lots became available, and when someone wanted to put a duplex in it, and it was 0.35 acres, I could see where we're gonna do it. But I don't know about bonuses stuff.
I mean, the easier ones in my head would be to change your density from 4 to 5 dwelling units per acre. That changes, that would hit your piece, I think, where you need it.
That'd be 0.42 units, looking at 0.2 acres per unit, right?
Yeah.
Do we need to table this and think about it?
Is that?
Why don't-
now
it's-
the
it's 9
ACR is
o'clock.
expanded.
Yeah, it's 9 o'clock.
So why, actually, this is our last district, and then we will go on to ADUs and definitions next time. So I think we can table this and take care of it hopefully quickly next time, and then go to ADUs and definitions and still hit our mark.
How much do we have in definition?
Just a couple. It's really
The
just the
hotel
business,
thing.
it's the hotel guest facility and the business yard.
And then
Okay.
you took good notes on all the comment at the beginning.
I did take notes on all the
I got
comments.
it on that size, right now it says footprint, 9,000 square feet or this or that. And I'd like us to have total square feet on some of these things rather than something that I think is confusing personally. And then we know.
And is it possible to
I
put
don't know
another,
whether is that in this, rules section? Okay.
I think what you're talking about would be ADUs, Fred. Right? When you're talking about square footage for accessory dwelling units,
That, yes.
but you're talking about
Um,
something else.
And
now.
well, also accessory buildings, also, because you can have an accessory building. And
Mhm.
as long as we're clear exactly how large an accessory building can be, 1 story, 2 story, 3 story, whatever.
Yeah, I mean.
That would make sense to me, and it would keep things simple.
Right, I mean, if somebody,
It is there.
No, so
So-
not according to some things that I've heard.
So
It's-
the area is there, but
Yeah,
Up and
it says
down.
1,000 square
So that-
feet accessory. Is that 1,000 square feet? It says footprint structure.
Yeah,
If you have a
So that's
second
looking at
floor,
it
it's
from above.
2,000 feet.
so.
of usable space, but the footprint is still 1,000 square feet.
So that
But
building is still.
It can be up to 35 feet tall. is what-
but in this instance, in Fred's instance, if I understand you. Your example, your hypothetical is not one new use, an ADU. It's 2. It's an accessory structure with an ADU on top of it. That's 2 new uses.
Yeah,
Possibly.
and you
Well,
know, with an
so I think-
accessory dwelling unit, the maximum
Well,
square
a
feet
garage is accessory structure, right?
we're making it 900.
was 900 or some percentage of the building for a unit.
Mhm.
But it's very common. I would, if I didn't have a garage and a workshop and everything else, place for storage, I might want to build one. Well, how many total square feet can I build it? And I don't know with what I see here, whether it's 900, 1,000, 1,400, or what it might
So
be.
the way the regs read right now, Fred, is it's 1,000 square foot footprint and up to 35 feet tall.
Except that I don't think that's spot on, because it matters what uses go in there. So if somebody's proposing an accessory structure, which would be like a garage or a shed or something, and an ADU on top, the ADU doesn't trump the fact that there's an accessory structure. You have to consider, because the DRB would have to consider both additional uses. The ADU doesn't trump anything you want to put on it. You can't put
No,
an
an
ADU on
accessory
top
use
of,
is largely a permitted use as well.
except that's, and that,
So
Okay.
let's
well,
cut the conversation where we did agree that we're gonna stop here and pick it up. next week.
You guys can discuss it, whether I like the idea of having total square footage. That's my sense of things. It's cleaner, and in the village, having something that's over 2,000 square feet or something like that it's bigger than my homes. Especially on a very small parcel.
Maybe bring a proposal for next meeting.
I won't be here for the next meeting.
Okay.
That's why I'm kind of punctuating it a little bit now. I will be in a land where I don't even know whether I'll get in.
Good for you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it,
Okay,
because our next meeting is 2 weeks.
weeks.
20,
17.
yes. So that's that. I'll make my pitch now. You guys can talk about it. I guess I'll live with whatever you decide, but I'd really like to have a square foot definition. Like the consideration of village lots and the fact that some of them are very small. And if you allow a very large structure on a very large, small lot, the dynamics are very different.
I don't know if we have any power there, though, do we?
Okay, so. Done. With the discussion. And potential.
I don't think so. One of my subjects hasn't come up, which is on this vein of accessory dwelling units.
We're gonna
talk about that
next week.
That's next time.
It's tonight.
Next time.
For tonight,
Yeah, I'm not asking, actually, I'm not asking him saying.
Like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
Well, we got,
Here's something.
We gotta get Chris's report and whatever.
yeah, we got a couple. Meeting minutes hanging out there,
Mm.
and I'd like to get those approved after this.
See, and
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I entertain a motion to approve
Motion to approve minutes of the meetings was September 5th and September
September
19th.
5th and 19th.
Gotcha.
Okay, anybody second that?
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
this is for the 19th.
Fifth and-
And the fifth.
And the 5th.
Can I vote on the 5th? Was I there?
I don't believe
Aye.
we were not there.
So it's basically approving the minutes is rather a strange process, because really all you need to do is review them for accuracy.
Yeah, basically.
And any sort of approval is semantics. Our zoning administrator stepped out, so I don't know if you got a report or not. Miscellaneous correspondence is in the chair notes and attached, so you can take a look at that at your leisure. And do we have any? Do we have public comment?
Jim was in there, was the only one, I don't know if it still is.
Did we lose him?
I
We lost something.
don't know.
I don't know.
Click on the Zoom on the bottom, there you go.
There we go.
Jim
We
said,
have
do we have any public comment? There is.
No,
He's shaking his head.
Okay. So I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Bill's
Abstentions. He's outvoted. Okay, thank you.
Have a good night.